I'm sorry. I totally lost track of what happened with my podcast there. Anyway, as I was going on, I was basically saying and reiterating, hey, AJ, Suburban Princess again, Birds of a Feather, episode 12.1 now, or 12.0. I was saying basically that Carson is not your average QB, and I love that he eats, sleeps, and breathes the sport, and he ingests basically a will to win on this team. And I think that's the only difference. I mean, maybe some of the names haven't changed. Maybe some have changed their mentality or their mechanics or their, how they prep for every game now. But there is a whole different vibe going through the organization. And I hope it stays, because if there's one thing that us Negadelphins are used to is losing. We haven't had a big championship in here since the Soul just won their Arena Bowl for the second time, as well as National when the Phillies won the pennant in 2008. So we are overdue as a city to change our mentality and to create a new way of looking at things, a new perspective. Not only do I want to talk about the Eagles' win and the 7-1 record, but I do want to talk about the general tide is changing for Philly sports, and that's a wonderful thing. The Sixers apparently won another game today in Houston against the Rockets, which now they're 1-1 because apparently they just lost home last week. And I think that as Joel Embiid and Ben and TJ McConnell and let's see who else. Markelle Fultz is now going to be sat because now they realize the shoulder injury is a little more serious, so they're not going to play him for a while, which is fine. He's the rookie. He's supposed to grow. He'll maybe next year will be his first full season as a Sixer. But right now we're focusing on the Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons growth. And right now what I see is Ben is slowly starting to get out of a very timid, all I want to do is pass and dunk occasional role. I think he's starting to realize he has to step up. He shouldn't be afraid of his talent. He needs to get out of a college mentality where he used to probably always do was just pass or always break things down so that other people could look good. And I think now he's learning to take the ball to the hoop a lot more and from a distance. Now, once that Joel Embiid, even though he just recently had a hand injury, but I don't think it's serious, I think once we stopped focusing on Joel Embiid's injuries and his recovery and his stamina and all the things that he's not doing, I think sooner or later the Sixers will be in the same vein as the Eagles are, and people will start looking at them and saying, wow, this team has really come up. Now, the Sixers are obviously a longer project than the Eagles were, and maybe just about even, maybe a little more. No, the Sixers are more, because even since AI left, there has been a void that has never really been filled. And even if the Sixers did have appearances here and there in the playoffs, they were always the very last seed and just barely squeaking by. But, there seemed to be a lot of changes that were bound to happen. And, there were a lot of obvious front office moves and everything. And Sam Hinkie became the legend that he is, being that he got the ball rolling on trying to just ingest new energy, whether it was, through, who is it? Michael, MCW. I forgot his name already. But when he was on the team for briefly that run and then got traded, and then when they had Nerlens Noel, and then that's when Joel Embiid came in, and then even when they didn't work together all the time, then Jahlil Okafor, and, we went through a carousel of different names on the Sixers, and fans had to have an uber amount of patience because it became a joke to go to a Sixers game for a while. They couldn't even get rid of tickets. And now, they're sold out already for like half the season, and we're just only in the second or third week. So things change in the span of a year or 10, if you will. And I think that the spirit of Philadelphia is starting to emerge slowly back into our sports teams. The Flyers are starting to look good. Yes, they're having some injury issues as well early on, but I think that the hockey fans are very glad to see their guys on the ice. I think that Wayne Simmons has kind of put his face out there a lot more, as other than just being the one black guy that I ever knew that was on the ice ever in NHL. He has become a force for the Flyers, as well as all the other new recruits that are probably going to grow even more important as the year goes on. When the Sixers and the Flyers do play, it's always fun because it's like a fallback, especially when the Eagles are about to have a bye. These can be our fall sports for those who are, I don't know, bored or nervous or not trusting the process with the Eagles, believing that it's real, especially once after they play Denver, who just got beat by the Chiefs tonight. Hopefully we'll be able to have the same luck against the Broncos because they don't really see an intimidating team other than Von Miller on that whole squad. And I pray that we have the same result so that the Eagles can go into the bye maybe battered and bruised, but not down, and we have an 8-1 record to watch as the other teams try to gain their momentum for the second half of this season. I think when you're a fan around this time of the year, it's almost stressful, but then it's not because there's always a backup thing you can watch, like as far as sport. If you're not a hockey fan, there's the Sixers. If you're not a Sixers fan, there's the Eagles. And if you're not either of those teams, the Phillies just signed a new manager in Gabe Kepler. And even though to me he looks like he came straight out of a spray tan commercial, and looks like he might have done some modeling or taking semi-nude pictures in the middle of a desert, he is definitely going to be an eye-opener for the Phillies, obviously showing that the new GM, who's young, wants to go young for his coach, his next manager. And I think that now that Larry Bowa and the former coach are now part of the front office scouting process, that basically is saying that out with the old, in with the new. And it's probably a good thing because the Phillies did end on a pretty decent note as they did the year before. So let's just pray that next season they will consistently throughout the year be a force in the MLB, especially now on the precipice of possible former Philly Chase Utley getting another ring, which I think he will because I know the Dodgers will come back. I won't be shocked if Houston takes it all, but I would be at the same time because I would want Chase to win one more ring just because he's pretty much been the most consistent Philly in the world. That I know of next to Mike Schmidt as far as my generation. So for Chase, I root for the Dodgers for this last half of baseball. But it's a good time. I mean, we're on the precipice of the holiday season, when the only thing that's going to matter to me is what gifts I give my nieces and nephew and whether or not I'll be able to get through this winter season if the snow stays back and doesn't interrupt my daily flow of work. Ready for the new year and ready to continue exactly where 2017 is looking like it's going to leave off. And that's hopefully and prayerfully a confident direction. I do feel that all this new youth that has been injected in all the teams is showing that it is truly a process and it wasn't just about Joel Embiid and it wasn't just about the Sixers. Every team in Philly has decided it's time to turn the page. And I like this process. I like that eventually a couple years from now, we're going to look back and say we went through all that agonizing for this reason to bring us into this level of play. And it'll be fun to watch because, whereas people are so even scared on like national television to commit to saying that the Eagles can be a Super Bowl team, could be the same stations that will end up, looking at the Eagles, dare I say it, like the Patriots, up there and could be the next big dynasty. I've never liked the label of the Cowboys being called America's team. I always thought that the Eagles should be America's team because technically Pennsylvania is the state where pretty much America was born. So I never will get that moniker, and I'm kind of glad they don't use it as much because I do feel like Philadelphia is where everything should start and everything has started. And I think that denial proved itself valid in the beginning of the year when we hosted the draft here in Philadelphia and we broke all sorts of records. And now that they've decided to share the wealth and give it to Dallas for next season, to me, that's just going to be a flashy, Vegas-y, cheesy version of what the Eagles have done and what Philadelphia has done for the draft. I think it's going to give it more that flashy, cheesy commercial flair that all those owners and merchandise corporation people love to death. So it's probably going to be product placement left and right all over Dallas because they're like major whores when it comes to making deals of any kind of money grubbing aspect, because that's all Jerry Jones is really about. I'm sure this time next year we'll still be talking about whether Kaepernick's stance 2 seasons ago made a difference or was it just a little distraction? Was it just something to talk about? I think especially with the most recent comments of the Houston Texans owner, who decided to label those who chose to kneel as inmates. I think it just, if anything, just proved why the NFL is now becoming, I don't know, scrutinized in a way that to me is well deserved, because whereas it used to be an institution that was just a fun pastime, now it seems like it's become like this money pit of endless hypocrisy and endless hypocrisy and mindless marketing, basically. Even though I'm not really high on the NFL Europe product, and even though they're going to keep selling it because they're saying that people in Europe love American football, I am at the same token excited to hear that the Eagles might be one of those next teams to have to play a game in Europe, which I love the idea of the Eagles going to London. I think it's great. I think it's a wonderful marketing PR move. I think it would be great to host contests everywhere, to win tickets, to like get a all expense paid trip there and be able to see the game and then like report on the Eagles website. Like, to me, that would be the ultimate fan dream trip. And to me, since I'm obsessed with going to London, I would love that myself. But enough about me. I do think that this time of year, though, this is when the teams are really starting to show themselves, and with the Sixers and the Flyers getting underway as well, showing what we're going to have to be watching for the next 3 or 4 months. I think that if the Sixers want, they could really, really, really flip the script and become a contender in the same year. But they have to understand that there's some things in the front office that are obviously not clear. Like, why would Markelle Fultz's shoulder be that bad if he really didn't already have this injury? Why did the medical staff not know it? Why was he playing at all? Why was he practicing at all if they knew his shoulder was that bad? Do the medical directors know what they're doing? I mean, did this monitoring of Joel Embiid's minutes, is it really helping or hindering, or is it holding him back in terms of progress? You know, Ben's not showing any signs of wear or tear. Maybe he decided to take his own side advice for medical rehab, because he doesn't seem to be showing any signs of slowing down. But he's also the youngest one there. So I think just Joel Embiid being the 7-foot freak that he is, I think his body just sometimes goes through literal growing pains as he plays. So I think that every little nook and cranny, or everything that cracks and sore and flares up, is not necessarily a sign that he cannot play. I think it's just a sign that his body is still getting adjusted to his frame, and yet his stamina and incredible playing ability. So I don't think it's anything that really any medical staff could really help him with. I think it's just God's grace and the talent that he was blessed with to keep him, upright all year. He knows himself that he does have a weakness, in the sense that he himself said he's not going to most likely be playing all 82 games, which I don't expect any of the pros now to do that. They just don't have that kind of, no one has that kind of build anymore to last 82 games without not playing. We're looking at LeBron James, who seems like he's been in the league forever, and he's got 2 championships under his belt. And I think at this point in his life, he's realizing that the game can slow down when you get older. And he's now becoming that Kobe-esque figure that is starting to breed young wannabes in the NBA. The NBA never really looked so appetizing as it has already, because there's already been a couple of fights. There's already been a lot of controversial foul calls. There's been a lot of these, like the Golden State Warriors are starting to get this little tarnish, little attitude, a little early. Not a fan of Curry being kind of cocky as he's become, but at the same time, I do think he is still a good player. I think that, Golden State Warriors are worth all the praise that they get. But I also do believe that maybe him and Draymond Green are starting to believe their newspaper clippings, and I think it's starting to show. I mean, with Curry getting all over the place and a lot of the teams going everywhere, and now this big NBA thing overseas in China and or Japan. I think it's China, but you can start smelling yourself, and especially if you've never been in that position before. And the Golden State Warriors are now 2 championships up. So I do believe that a lot of that stuff in the NBA world can can go to their heads. And, but it's been exciting. It's also been an exciting offseason because there's been a lot of switching around with players. You know, Dwayne Wade joining LeBron as Cleveland Cavalier, as you know, as they played together when they were in the Miami Heat. And who else is more exciting? Oh, yes, you have Paul George joining Russell Westbrook, the triple-double threat, who seems to never stop with his stats. And Chris Paul joining the Rockets, leaving the Clippers. So there's a lot of exciting things going on in NBA, but, you know, they can only do so many super teams to keep one interested, especially when it comes to playoff time, because usually people start falling off if they find it's, you know, the Golden State Warriors and somebody else, or if it's, you know, I don't know. It's definitely not going to be the Lakers for a while, because even with Lonzo Ball on there now, I think the Lakers have a lot of growing up to do, and once Lonzo Ball's father kind of pipes down and talks less, maybe eventually the Lakers will go back to being known for the talent as a team and not so much the controversial back talk that Lonzo Ball seems to bring around himself, or attention that he brings to himself. But again, you know, these kids make tons of money and they make it very fast and at very young ages. So, you know, it's not expected for all ball players, whether it be football, hockey, or baseball, to always be the upstanding citizen, be role models. You know, they're just there to play a sport that they love and they get paid for it. So you can't expect the full package with everybody. But as I end this brief podcast, I just want to say I'm very excited for another week of football. But at the same time, I'm not going to lie, I'm tired. I'm glad the Eagles are about to have a bye because it's been a lot. I mean, last night, we were all drowned rats coming back from the game because it was raining all day nonstop. And I'm glad it didn't stop the Eagles from winning. And I'm glad that the defense showed up as good as it did. And I'm just glad that we didn't go home as drowned rats with a loss. I'm just glad that we were able to go home and say, well, at least we won, and it was a good game, and it was worth watching, it was exciting, and there were a lot of oohs, ahs, and flags and everything. So I'm hoping this game is a nice, clean win for this last Sunday home game until the bye. I think all the guys definitely will deserve this bye, and I pray that they play just as hard as they did this past Sunday, if not better, as they did Monday. And so, yes, go Birds, and hopefully by the time I record again, when I'm on bye week, there'll be a lot more exciting, maybe, I don't know, trade deadlines to talk about. I mean, if there is a blockbuster one, you never know. That'll probably be the next time I make another podcast before the Eagles start the second half of the season. But until then, you know how to shout me out if you feel so. AJ the Suburban Princess, AJ Riddle Caller at AOL, Girly Virgo 78. Instagram, AJ Radio Caller, and FB, AJ the Sports Radio Caller. And you can add a comment, send me a message, whatever, inbox, whatever you feel. Let me know what's on your mind. How are you taking this whole season? Because so far it's been very, very up and down, but in a good way. And I look forward to even the Sixers starting to take center stage. This is usually the time when the Eagles and the Sixers kind of trade PR moves, trying to outdo each other, because you notice that whenever there's something exciting on the Eagles front, here comes the Sixers, you know, delivering a blow. So it'll be exciting. It'll be definitely a good step in the holidays with some good vibes from all our sports teams. So go Birds, go Sixers, go Phillies with our new manager, and go Flyers. Continue to kick butt and take names. And next time I see you guys, it'll be the last game before the bye. All right. Bird Gang for life. See you later. Peace out.